Hello, this is Mr. Sherwood with Tech.n.Stuff, and I am making this video to show my students how to create a three-part folding phone stand. Now I like this because it's very doable and it can be customized a bit, and all my students seem to be able to make one. And then of course after that it could be 3D printed on a 3D printer. Alright, so let me close that one out. Now for this project we're going to make three separate files. So we're going to start out by doing the sketch rectangle, center point rectangle. Now it's best to create this on the top plane, so I'm going to click on that, and now design from the center. Okay. Now this one we're going to make it 110 high and 79 wide. So I'll start with 79, press the tab button, jump up to 110. That's my initial shape. Now we're going to choose the offset tool. You can tap O on the keyboard for that as well. And I'm going to offset it on the inside of the first rectangle. That's the main thing to know, and this is going to offset 5. Now sometimes the 5 and the -5 are different. Often when my students do it, it's a +5. Just make sure the offset goes on the inside of the rectangle. Okay. From that we are going to start our extrude. Choose the create extrude button and extrude this shape up 9 millimeters. At this point we're going to design a new sketch on the side of this shape, so I'm going to come down to the circle tool, and I'm going to start out with a 2-point circle. Click on the side of this shape, and then I'm kind of going diagonally down across this for the circle. So I'm bringing it down about 2 of the millimeters. I can tell because it's 2 squares there, and then I want this one to be 5 millimeters as well. Now I'm going to make another circle using the center diameter circle. This one I'm going to bring over to about the 25 millimeter mark and then bring it up. This is going to be a diameter of 7 millimeters. And notice it's right, the center is right on the edge of the shape. So you'll see that. Okay. From this point we're going to extrude first circle out 5 millimeters. Click OK. Sketches tend to automatically turn off when you extrude, so check that sketch, turn it back on if you need to. This second sketch I'm going to extrude cut now across and make a notch. Okay, from this point we're going to do a create a pattern on a path. I'm going to leave it set for faces and then select the objects that I want to pattern. Select the path. Prefer to use this inside line, and then drag it this way. Now if I leave it the way it is right now, it's going to make 3 notches. I want more than that. Let's try 9, and then it'll cut 9 notches out of that. Alright, at this point I can take and I'm going to go ahead and mirror these shapes to the other side. So I'm going to do create a mirror and select all the faces that are going to be affected. Unfortunately, this is the best way to do it. I normally like to minimize the number of items to select, but this is the best way. select the mirror plane, and you'll see the origin shows up. This is why we are using the centered rectangle. It allows us to use the origin for our different mirrors. And you can see it copied that to the other side. From this point, we're going to go to the Modify menu, and we're going to fillet some of the edges. I'm going to choose this edge, and then matching inside edge there, and then the inside edge, and the matching outside edge. It'll actually select through the shape if you just point to the general area where it should be. Round those off. 5mm should be fine. Press enter. Now I'm going to fillet the rear edge here. Press enter. And part 1 is done. Let's go ahead and save this. We're going to call this Folding Phone Stand Part 1. Okay, now we're going to create the Folding Phone Stand Part 2. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Better practice to save it at the beginning than at the end. Going to use the centered rectangle again and work on the top plane. So this time I've done it different dimensions in the past, but I find that the best dimensions to work with are 80 by 80. And we're going to take that, and then we're going to do a couple of offsets. So I'm going to choose the offset tool, click on the outside rectangle, bring it inside by 6, do it again, start at the outside rectangle except bring it in by 12, and then we're going to use some 2-point rectangles to divide off some sections that we need to change. So first we're going to do a rectangle across the whole top. It's going to be 38mm tall. You can see that there. We're going to make another rectangle here across the bottom. This one is going to be 22mm. And we'll set that aside. And then we're going to use the line tool, regular line tool there, okay, and we're going to connect corner to corner from these rectangles we just made. After making those connections, we're going to use the extend tool to extend some of these lines. So let's extend this line first, continue it up, extend this line up, same thing over here, and we're going to extend this line down to the bottom and this line down to the bottom. Okay. Once we've done that, now it's going to make it easy to extrude the shapes we need. So we're going to do these shapes, same thing on the other side. Extrude these up 8mm from there. At this point, I'm going to use the centered circles, center diameter circles, and I'm going to create some more sketches. Now for this, I'm actually going to design on the center plane here. So one is going to be 5mm in diameter. Repeat that, and this one is going to be 6mm in diameter. Now that's a little too close to the edge there. on. Okay, so the 5mm circle is going to be an extrude. We're going to do a two-sided symmetric extrude, and we're not going to cut with it, but what we do want is that we want it to line up with the edge, the bottom edge of our part. So I'm going to change that from a cut into a join, and you'll see that makes a post. I'm going to do this again with the extrude. This time I need to find my sketch. There it is. This time we're going to go ahead and do a symmetric extrude again, except this time we are cutting. And it'll just automatically cut when it hits those parts on the left and right. Okay, now this is going to be a rotating part. These edges here are going to be a problem, so what we need to do is modify those with a fillet under the modify menu, and we can just go ahead and should be able to select these all together, do them at the same time, and you'll notice that they change on the top and bottom. Click enter on the keyboard, and that part is pretty much done. Now you could, functionally it's fine. Sometimes I like to make it a little more rounded, and I'm going to choose to fillet these inside and outside edges. And when I do that, you'll see it just kind of rounds it out. Optional. I just like the way it curves like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that part. And we're done with part 2. On to part 3. Now we're going to start our third and final part. I'm going to go ahead and save this file. Folding phone stand, part 3. Okay, and for this one, we are going to be making another centered rectangle. Start with a rectangle, center rectangle. Work on the top view. And first one is going to be 95 wide, and I take, yes, 90, yep, I got that backwards, 95 wide and 90 high. So 90 high, 95 wide. I'm going to repeat that, center rectangle. Take that back. I'm not going to repeat that. I'm going to do an offset. So let's go ahead and sketch offset. Offset that by 7. Make sure it goes inside the other rectangle so you don't change the outside dimensions of the part. And from here we are going to use the extend tool. Extend this edge right here all the way to the bottom there. Extend this edge to the bottom, and now we're ready to extrude. I'm going to quick save that. Okay, so home view for extruding, we're going to extrude this part up 10. Now we're going to design a new sketch on the side of our part 3. So I'm going to choose my 2-point rectangle tool. click on the side of our part. I'm going to make a rectangle. This rectangle is going to go over to the right 20 millimeters, and it's going to go up 25. So you can jump fields by clicking the tab button on your keyboard. We're going to add in a 2-point circle, and starting in the corner, click up, and we're going to bring this up 20 millimeters. Now that's the outline for creating the cradle for the phone. So I'm going to extrude that now. And just bring it over so that it's the same width. There we go. Click OK. Okay. Alright, so on this point we are going to add in some more circles that we use for posts and holes. So I'm going to create I think a 2-point circle would be our best tool for this. Click on this inside edge. I actually prefer to look so I can see where I'm working, because this I need to create it inside this. So we're going to center it as much as possible. Leave enough space so that the other part does not get caught on the top there. And this is going to be 5 millimeters. Okay, repeating that circle, 2-point circle. We're going to bring this down to the bottom edge and kind of design out of this corner like we did that other time. Diagonally bring it up 6 millimeters. Okay, so this bottom circle is used to cut. This top circle, which disappeared, is used to create a little post here that's 5 millimeters long. Now, might as well just work on cleaning some of the things up. So we're going to choose Modify Fillet, and what I like to do is have a nice rounded edge all around this, even up at the top here. Let's see how we can do with this, especially near the bottom. This is a rotating part right here, so you want it to have a nice rounded edge there. And I like that, so I'm going to click Enter. Now, rather than redesigning this again on the other side, we're going to use that mirroring function that we did earlier. So let's do Create a Mirror. And we could choose faces here. I'm going to go ahead and choose Features to mirror. So when you choose Features, then you can select them from the timeline as steps that you did. So there's my fillets. There's my posts, there's my cut I made, and the only other thing is I need to mirror that ledge as well, or the phone ledge, I guess you could call it. Alright, a mirror plane, selecting that should be the center plane that divides the part in two, and let's click OK. So there it is on the other side. Now this is where I like to have my students customize it. So at this point I find it best to bring up this into more of a billboard, add about 15 millimeters onto that, and then this is where we can make it personal. So there's a lot of ways to do this. You could draw a picture, you could make a design, you could do whatever you want. Just to keep it simple though, I'm going to use the text tool. Okay, so your goal is to just find a font that fits nicely, takes up a good amount of space on your billboard there. I will warn you right now, not every single font seems to extrude for some reason. I don't know why. And the other thing is I would extrude into your billboard rather than out, because remember there's a phone sitting against that. Now you can do two things. You can cut all the way through, But if you cut all the way through, things like the inside of an O, inside of an R, inside of an A are going to fall out because there's nothing holding them in place. So not a bad idea to not go all the way through. The other thing I would like to do is fillet those top edges. Kind of match the feel of the rest of it. And once you've done that, you have made your part 3. Okay, at this point, any of these parts could be saved as an STL file, which is a file we can 3D print. But before I do that, I want to make sure that they're correct and will fit together. So I'm going to save a new file called this folding phone stand, if I could spell, assembly. So this assembly is a place, it's a file where we can assemble these parts digitally to see if they work. So I'm going to grab them one at a time, drop them in, and they're going to be converted into components. And that looks fine. I'm going to give myself a little more space. Do it again with part 2. And if you happen to have any sketches turned on, they will show up in the assembly. Generally that annoys me, but I'm going to just ignore that little sketch there. And then the third part. Click OK. Now, in order to see if they fit, they look like they're going to be okay, but let's find out for sure. We're going to do what's called assemble joints. So we're going to first, we're going to select the part of a rotating joint that moves. So this part is, I want to stay stable. So this is the part that is going to be movable. I'm going to go ahead and pick this inside circle right there, and that's going to connect to this post over here. You'll notice it automatically moves. Now it needs to be set as a revolute joint, and then you can grab the handle to rotate that. It's not necessarily positioned exactly correctly, so what I'm going to do is slide this over, zoom in, get the spacing right on both sides. Looks good. So far so good. Okay, now let's check out the kickstand. So for that, we're going to assemble the joint on that, and I'm going to connect this circle over here up to this post up there. Okay, looks pretty good, so I'm going to take and slide this over a little bit. The more you zoom in, the more detailed you can be with your adjustments. Still need a little more. I think there's about a 2 millimeter gap in there. Okay, evened it out. And the other thing I want to adjust is that angle, so I'm going to grab the handle and slide that down. Click OK. So at that point, I've confirmed that the parts indeed will fit together when they're created, and that will be your functional folding phone stand. So for this, I'm going to click Save and OK. Now, as far as 3D printing them, let me go ahead and open one of these. You would need to convert each of these files into a separate STL. I mean, technically, you could 3D print them all together. I don't think that's the best way to do it. You'd want them flat if you can do that. So we're going to go to the top level, right click, choose Save as STL, and preview the mesh. I like to preview it. Breaks it up into 26,000 triangles. Click OK. Choose my saving location and click Save. So that's how you STL those files. Do that each time, and then those are the ones that you can send to your 3D printer, however you do that on your particular 3D printer. That's it.